Everybody, Jacqueline Sumi here. And as you can see, the title of this presentation is 5 Steps to Get Your Kids Speaking Your Native African Language in the Next 3 months, whether it's Swahili or Yoruba or Kan or Shona or Zulu, so that you can give them the sense of identity you've always wanted them to have despite living away from your home country. Now, I know that most presentations will have lots of preamble, but I'm different. I'm going to dive right in because I know that you're here and you're watching this for the good stuff. So, who this is for? This presentation is for you if you're an African parent in the diaspora who's been wanting to teach your kids the native language that you speak for a long time, but you find that you just can't get started and there's not enough time along with other after school programs to get that done. Or you're an international parent abroad and you'd like your kids to learn the native language of the country that you're currently living in Africa, and are either not satisfied with the local teaching options or you want to supplement their current lessons. Maybe you've tried everything and you just don't seem to be making any progress and you're ready to get some help so that you can get moving today. You're finally ready to get it done in the next 3 to 6 months to a year, and you need a clear strategy without unrealistic goals, boring classes that kids fight over attending, and ridiculously high tutors prices that you can't just sustain. So this is what we're going to cover. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about how to get your kids well on their way to learning your native language, stress-free and effortlessly, even if you've tried and failed countless times before, and everyone tells you it's impossible. And how to get the best quality teachers at the most cost-effective prices so that you can get the ones that you can get anywhere on the internet without spending a fortune just to find out it's not working. And how to get a proven curriculum that gives you visible results and a step-by-step process so that you can track, support, and see your child's progression within the year. And how to super speed your child's learning outcomes through interaction with other communities of kids and get them to see, feel, and embrace culture. Just drastically cutting down those cries of protest every time you say, it's language learning time. And we've all been there. If you've been trying this for any length of time, you've definitely faced those times. So my promise to you is that you'll have a crystal clear roadmap to stop stressing, regain lost time, and just get on track to have your child speaking your native language in the next 3 months so that you can finally pass on the cultural identity that's so important to third culture kids. Or if you're living abroad, to be able to help them connect more with the culture that they're living in, if that's the language you're choosing to learn. So, first, before I just want to take a second and check in with you to see where you're at. Does this sound like you? Have you struggled with not enough time to teach your child the language? And I mean, along with school, after school programs, and it's barely possible to squeeze in a meal together, let alone to stress over giving them the lessons. Or maybe you stay out of your native country and then you move around a lot. That's making it difficult to find teachers. And try as you may, there are no teachers where you're based. Or the ones that are actually based there where you are just not good. And is the quality of teaching as well as the efficiency a big issue for you? Most teachers we've used teach Swahili in an ad hoc manner. I mean, it's definitely not fun. And because there are just not enough options of teachers, there's no choice for better quality, and the same applies for Yoruba or Akan or Zulu. And more than that, do you find that most teachers miss the curriculum, consistency, structure, and strategy of teaching? That most teachers don't actually have a curriculum that works? And when you do get teachers, do you lack continuity from one teacher or class to the next? And then how about expense? I mean, do you find that teaching when it's available, it's expensive? I've been seeing 30-minute group lessons sold for just way more than they're worth because the teacher is making absolutely no effort. Or maybe the teaching, when it is available, is the good one, it's in a different time zone, it's at a limited time, and it's got such restrictive availability that you struggle to make it work. And you're also losing valuable time in that case because the progress that your kids are making, it's lost because then you have to travel and maybe they're not available online or virtually, or the commute back and forth really drags and weighs you down. It's just too much. And as a parent, are you missing the structure and the tools to carry out the training that you've tried and failed several times to do? Really, you've tried and failed and just so miserably. So is one of your biggest issues community, uh, and that sense of belonging? Do you do your kids not have peers that they can speak their language with? Or do they not have enough language exposure, repetition, and review just to allow them to pick up the language? Do you feel like you're losing valuable time day by day in getting your kids to fully embrace who they are and where they come from through their learning of the culture and language? Well, if any of this sounds like you, then I have good news. Those are not the real problem, they're just symptoms of the problem. The real problem is that you haven't discovered what I call the 5 steps. And I'll tell you what they are in just a second. And once you discover them, you break free from the cycle that you've been in of wanting to teach your kids, trying and failing, hibernating, getting up the energy to try again, and so on. And you finally have the conviction and peace of mind that you're giving your children everything that they need, you know, just to be self-confident and self-knowing kids from just from your native country, from your native culture. And once you discover them, your frustration will be turned into excitement, and you'll be able to see such clear progress as your kids pick up the language. You confidently schedule that rural home visit that you've been putting off. And you'll instantly have access to an amazing community of your native speakers anytime, every time, with whom your kids can learn, grow, practice, and get comfortable. And you'll be super confident that you're doing the best you can as a parent. You to provide your child the instruction they need. No running around with too many programs. No fighting to get them to go on the live teaching. They'll look forward to it and they'll be asking you, when do we get to go on? And more than that, you will know exactly how to keep your kids engaged and interacting in the language even after their classes, because you'll get tips and support on how to integrate your language into their lives even more. And you'll be able to reset the button on the language learning and start speaking to them yourself as if you always did that. And you'll be confident because your child's future with regards to their native country, I mean, you feel that they're now ready to take on what life brings. Should they ever find themselves back in their home country, they won't be an outsider anymore. And in fact, they'll be looking forward to going back home because of the language skill and cultural pride that you're in process of imparting to them. Now, before we go too much further, let me take a second to introduce myself so that you know who I am and why you should listen to me. My name is Jackie Tsuma, and I've lived out of my home country for over 15 years with my husband. And both our kids have grown up outside of our home country as well. Now, they're well on their way to learning the language and enjoying it now, and all because we decided that it's time to get this on the road for the rest of the parents like me and from Africa who are just willing to teach their kids, parents who are willing to also teach their kids an African language. Now, before we go too much further, let me take a second to introduce myself so that you know who I am and why you should listen to me. My name is Jackie Tsuma, and I've lived out of my home country for over 15 years with my husband. And both my kids have also grown up outside of our home country as well. Now they're well on their way to learning the language and enjoying it. And this was all because we decided that it was time to get this on the road. And we want to do the same for the rest of the parents like me from Africa, or even internationals who are willing to teach their kids an African language. So we struggled, to get started with teaching our kids the language. My husband and I come from different urban backgrounds and different tribes, but the thing that connected us was Swahili. And we didn't know where to start in the beginning. I mean, from the day that they were born, we were looking for the same resources we have used when we grew up back home to help them learn, but we never found them. And all these years later, 13 years to be precise, we finally realized the missing link. We needed to create what we wanted if other people would not or could not. Then we quickly realized that we were not alone. Other people were just yearning and looking for this information, for this community, this strategy, this help. And there was such a yawning gap. You see, most of those teaching in person or online our native African languages, they were not ever in a place where they didn't hear the language growing up. They'd always been in their home country as kids. Truth is, diaspora kids, third culture kids have different needs. So how could they even know that itch if they never had to scratch it before? And we just couldn't believe the low quality teaching strategies that they were using. They were just not working with our kids. So we decided enough is enough, and we distilled the steps we've taken to get started into these 5 steps. Number 1, make it fun. I mean, this is a no-brainer for parents, but it's surprisingly hard to implement. Because the number one thing that kids hate is yet another boring class. I've had many struggles with my kids trying to drag them off to boring language classes for Swahili. But really try and also drag them off the things that they think are fun, like Netflix and social media. Well, good luck with that. So, we then realize that we need to make it fun for the kids. In fact, they're the ones that help us determine whether to hire a teacher or not. Because growing up, we went to camps. We had fun because the camp counselors made it fun. Teachers will be the key in the process of making the experience fun for your kids. So don't settle with just any teacher just off the street, that you happen to find. Be very specific about the type of approach that they should take and whether the kids enjoy their method. And when the kids enjoy the learning, the biggest part of the battle is won. Because it seems like it's a very well kept secret, but it's actually very simple. And once you get your first taste of this type of teaching, you'll have the bag and you'll never want to do it any other way. Number 2, make it easy to access. Now, this is a no-brainer as well. You don't want things that are super hard to access. And if you think about it, why is Netflix currently the easiest thing to access? It's only a button click away. And we're really living in an age where the power of online access means we don't have to rely on traditional schools and methods of teaching anymore. And even better, we can learn on the go, right? And kids are digital natives. They know their way around mobile devices. The trick we found with making things stick is using what our kids are already using, which is the internet, mobile devices, use videos that they can watch anytime. And now we get a global teacher community, because a major issue when COVID hit was that we no longer could haul kids off to in-person activities. But what it also did was open up a whole new world of possibilities for online interactions that made it easy to get what we couldn't access as easily before, like teachers from all over the world. So before, since all our native teachers lived in our native country, we had to rely on native teachers located where we were located. But now we may have our pick of native teachers located all around the world. And this can be both a blessing and a curse, because with that great power also comes great responsibility. Now that we're able to give our kids the best there is, that actually leads us to the next challenge. How do we find the best that there is? It's pretty difficult in experience. It helps when you know what you're looking for. Enter step number 3. Our secret sauce, the total physical response approach, which gives you a framework on which to evaluate the tutors that you select, right? And it's a brand new approach. Brand new to you and me when we first discovered it. It's called total physical response, which is TPR in short. But let's first look at the old way. Most teachers will teach kids the traditional way, in the classroom with a blackboard talking to them in English when they're learning a different language, right? So they're explaining it in English. They're making them repeat it by instructing them in English. And they're correcting them in, you guessed it, English. Does this make sense? Most of us never learned a language like that. We talked with our friends, we watched television programs in the language, and played and sang songs among others. The songs were lots of fun. I'm sure you can think of all the childhood songs that you grew up singing. School was just the icing on the cake. Even when I was a foreign language student as an adult, my teacher would speak to us in the target language alone, with pictures to help us understand, and would only occasionally use English in order to pass across a more complex, theory, right? I was also immersed in the language, which helped because I had to use it to pursue my studies. Unfortunately, most African native language teachers are not teaching like this, which means that their teaching is doomed from the start. Kids will not progress as fast as they could. Parents will be frustrated, and the vicious cycle continues. But let's look at the new way. Okay, total physical response, or TPR, as I'm going to call it, was created by Dr. James J. Asher. It's based on the way that children learn their mother tongue. Parents have language body conversations with their children in which The parent instructs the child physically, and the child also physically responds to it. The parent says, "Look at mommy, look at daddy," or "Give me the ball," using physical cues. And the child does so, often mimicking the words and actions of their parent, so that the learning is further reinforced. These conversations continue for many months before the child actually starts to speak itself. Even though it can't speak during this time, the child is taking in all of the language, the sounds, and the patterns. Eventually, when it's decoded enough, the child produces the language quite spontaneously. I mean, TPR attempts to mirror this effect in the language classroom for teaching only in the target language and nothing else. So if you're teaching Swahili or Yoruba, for example, you only use simple forms of the language to communicate with the student and so on. In an online environment, this will involve facial expressions, hand gestures, and body movements that promote understanding. Hello, all these different things. Here are some more examples that you can see. I mean, you can actually tell what people are saying or communicating by the gestures that they're using, right? Most of all, the science just shows that it works. And this brings us to the next critical step. Now, before we go ahead, I'd like to pause and check in with you. So far, we've covered number one, make it fun. Number two, make it easy to access. And number three, our secret sauce in the total physical response approach. How do you feel about these? Do you feel excited at the possibilities? And do you wonder why you've never heard about this before? Well, if you do, you are not alone. Okay, let's go on with number four, which is repetition and immersion. Now, there's a gap because there's certain keys to fluency that we will talk about in a second. A survey of existing language plans that implement these keys in the online teaching world for native African languages brings up few to none. And two keys to unlock fluency are number one, constant repetition, and number two, community. So to learn a language, repetition is key. And this is missing when all one does is listen for 1 or 2 hours a week, and then they're back to their normal routine. It needs to be built into everyday activities to make it natural to pick up. So by using interactive media like flashcards, fill in the blank games, drag and drop, and gamification, kids can earn points towards a goal or prize. It's a superb way of funding the learner's involvement and self-drive. We also create fun music and kid-friendly raps and songs to help kids effortlessly memorize and internalize the words. We all know, kids already know all the pop songs of today by heart. We just harness that to help them learn their native language. And in every day, parents of learning kids also need the help on how to integrate it into their everyday and have the kids willing to engage. So having ideas of activities is a great help for parents who've tried and failed time and time again. And another key to learning language is getting comfortable to speak it right from the start. With the community learning aspect, kids encourage each other as they're all learning together. So immersion is another process, because once or twice a year, you're going to get the learners into an immersion experience where the only thing they hear is the language they're learning. That'll super speed their progress immensely. And when you have all these things inbuilt into a system that works for your child's language learning, you are on the way to success. Okay, but wait a minute. Where do you find that system? Because even as diaspora parents, we hit the tarmac and talk to lots of different teachers out there offering Swahili classes. The disparities that we found were shocking. I've outlined them at length earlier in this workshop, but I'll summarize. There's no systems. You see, one teacher teaches for 30 minutes with no meaningful take-home homework to ensure repetition, that, by having parents carry out basic exercises. And most teachers teach based on the same old method, done in the same old way. No change in approach. It's enough to frustrate even the best of intentions. Many other parents experience this frustration every day. Like Liz, before finding our system, her son, they only knew one word. Her oldest son only knew one word of Swahili, but now he's getting confident to start learning to speak it. There's a good system and simple processes, and it makes all the difference, because when the process is simple and straightforward, you know what to expect and what to do, and there will be no more jumping through the hoops. and feeling frustrated at the outcome, you're going to be getting the best system, because keys to getting the key is getting teaching partners that are committed to work with you to achieve your goal, partners that will take the time to really understand your situation. How, you ask? I'm going to show you how in our next step. But first, hear the stories of those that have used our system and emerged victorious, like Liz and Alex Constantares. They've lived abroad since their kids were babies, and they wanted to give them a chance to learn their mother's native language, or Swahili. So they tried out this method with their kids, and even their 3-year-old was engaged with the words and activities. See for yourself. So number 5, get help from experts. What you need, we've talked about having the right teaching partners, and we've talked about getting out there to research and make sure that you're using the absolute best approach. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things to do, and there's so little time. Because when it comes to language teaching, there are a lot of moving parts. It can leave your head spinning, even if you've done it before. And because each child is different. That's why a lot of parents keep putting it off, and they need help. The truth is, without the help to get moving, you're doomed to repeat your mistakes. So you want to get help teaching and training, from the curriculum to getting quality teachers, to scheduling, to creating engaging course content, keeping the kids motivated, getting ideas for activities, getting guidance on how to teach them in the everyday. It's a lot. It's a large number of things to start from scratch and do well. And you really want to do it by trial and error, because you also need community. Because once all that is settled, get them into a community where they will learn, by example, what it means to be a part of the culture, and then be positively influenced. The truth is, it's really not as easy as one would think. It's not an easy feat when you don't know what you're doing or even where to start. And this was the case with our own children. You want to get help, because there's an art and a science to getting it right. Do the teachers seeking to teach your kids really know what challenges you're facing as a parent away from your community? So you want to get help from people that understand your challenge. You want to find trusted help and stick with it. Hold on to it for dear life. Or just use our system, okay? I'm going to tell you how in a little bit. But like I said, this was the case with our own children. We sought help, we looked around in our community, but the truth is, even then, we had to discover a system that works. We had to make that system, and we now find it easy to interact with them in the language because we have that system. And today, I promised that you'd learn how to get your kids well on their way to learning your native language, stress-free and effortlessly, even if you've tried and failed countless times before. And everyone tells you it's impossible. And how to get the best quality teachers at the most cost-effective prices that you can get anywhere on the internet without spending a fortune just to find out it's not working. And how to get a proven curriculum that gives you visible results and a step-by-step process so that you can track, support, and see your child's progress within the year. How to super speed your child's learning outcomes through interaction with other communities of kids and get them to see, feel, and embrace culture, and drastically cut down, no, even do away completely with those cries of protest every time you say it's language learning time. And here's what you need to win. We talked about number 1, make it fun. Number 2, make it easy to access. Number 3, which is our secret sauce, the total physical response approach. And number 4, repetition and immersion. Finally, number 5, get help from experts. Here's the good news. Everything that we could think of that you need is inbuilt into the system that we've developed, and they can benefit you through training, teaching, and learning together. Now you have a choice. You can take the information that I've given you and ignore it and keep on losing valuable time day by day and getting your kids to fully embrace the culture and native language that you want them to embrace, or keep struggling with enough time to teach your child your native language, and even keep not being able to find the teachers, being forced to use the bad ones because that's what's available, and also keeping on having ad hoc lessons that are not fun, that are lacking curriculum and consistency and structure, So you keep going from one teacher or class to the next with no continuity in between, and just keep on trying yourself and failing because you don't have the tools to carry out the training in a consistent way. And just keep on paying expensive tutor fees for teachers that are making no effort, and stay without community and peers for your kids that they can speak their own language with. Or you could instead get your kids well on their way to learning stress free and effortlessly. Okay. Even if you've tried, by the way, before and failed, because now you'll be able to get the best quality teachers at the most cost effective prices that you can anywhere on the internet. Because you can also get a proven curriculum that gives you visible results and a step by step process so that you can track, support, and see your child's progression. Finally, just super speed your child's learning outcomes so that because you have that crystal clear roadmap to stop stressing and regain the lost time. See them, feel, embrace, and just get them to see, feel, embrace your culture and just cut down their cries of protest, as it's called. So here's how I can help. My team and I have set aside some time in the next 48 hours to speak to you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your child's learning journey starting today. Whatever your biggest challenges are, we've seen it and we know how to overcome it. On the call, we'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes, and on the call, we'll get you absolutely clear about three things. Okay? We'll work with you on a step by step roadmap to hit your child's native language learning goals for the coming year, whether that's getting them to hold a conversation or understand and appreciate their culture and background. We'll talk about what this can look like in terms of what you can budget towards that and some of the what options are available. And finally, we'll talk about how to cement their learning through immersion opportunities that are available as well. We'll tell you what you can expect and what you can 100% take to the bank. And if what you'd like to do, for example, can't work, then you know what? We'll 100% tell you that as well. But here's the catch: this is not for everyone. Here's who this is for. You must be ready to start now, not in the next 6 months or next year, 2023, 24. And don't worry, we'll set out a plan that's totally doable if your child has other things on their schedule at the moment. And also, you live abroad and you want to get your child to speak your language, or you live in a country in Africa and you want to get your child to learn the local language where you live. Okay? If that's you, book a session now. And why we're doing this? By the way, we're doing this because we love giving back. We love helping other Africans in the diaspora and internationals that embrace the culture to achieve their kids' learning goals. Plus, we know that you may want our help to get yourself started with power. And if so, we can discuss it and see if it's a good fit for both of us. And if not, that's fine too. So go ahead, visit www.tayari.live/let's talk. Spaces are limited, so do sign up now. And guys, before we head off, I just wanted to share this story with you. Growing up in Kenya, watching MTV, Disney, Nickelodeon, I developed the belief that I wasn't enough, that I had to change the way I spoke to be accepted. That getting the compliment that I speak English so well was the highest compliment I could ever be given. That speaking my mother tongue was optional and that I could relegate it to that pile of things my parents want me to do that I will never do. And I'm working on that. I mean, it's been 43 years and I've done a lot of unlearning and relearning. And I'm not there yet, but it's interesting how one's perspective can change in that time. And with the maturity that makes us realize without roots that we have no anchor. Without language, we struggle with identity. And I see it with my children growing up. I've seen it with countless third culture kids. And I realize it's not too late for them. We have a chance as parents to really make an impact in the next generation. And that's why we look forward to talking to you and recruiting you to this mission to save our culture. Well, look forward to talking. Make sure you go to tayari.live/let's talk and talk to you soon.